Hello, and welcome to In the Roud. Greetings and salutations, dear listeners. This is In the Roud, a folk song podcast, and I am your host, Matt Quinn. Join me as we travel through the world of traditional folk song, one song per episode in the order they appear in the Roud Index. Each episode will feature two guests, one providing an historical look at the song, while the other will be a singer from the folk music scene to talk about their own version of the song. This podcast is proud to be partly sponsored by the Traditional Song Forum. Meeting regularly, both in person and online, the TSF provides a place for a variety of topics related to folk song, song collectors, singers, and many other aspects of folk song research to be discussed and presented. It's free to join, and most meetings are free to attend. So, discover more about the TSF at www.tradsong.org. That's www.tradsong.org. So let's get going with this week's song. This time we're looking at Roud 43, and that happens to be Child Ballad 63. It's one called Child Waters. Later on we'll hear from our singer guest Judy Cook, but for now let's take a look at the history of the song with the creator of the Roud Index himself, Steve Roud. Well, hello and welcome back to In the Roud. Steve Roud, hello.
Hello there.
Hello. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Good stuff. It's nice to see you. Nice to see you again. We haven't seen you on the podcast for a while, but I saw you. We saw each other in person a couple of weeks ago at the Traditional Music Day in East Anglia in Stowmarket, where we did the first ever live episode of the podcast, which was very exciting for me.
Yes, it was.
We covered John Barleycorn, so 164. It'll go out on the Patreon sometime next year, and if I get to season 17, it'll go out there. So, considering we're in the middle of season 5 at the moment, best not to think too far ahead, I suppose. But it seemed to go very well. The audience there seemed to get what they wanted out of it. So,
yeah, it was nice to have an audience.
It was. Normally, this is
real people.
Indeed. With the podcast, we get an audience, but it's virtual and like weeks after we've recorded. So, but it was quite nice to be able to talk to an audience like in person there. So that was really good. I'm glad that all went well. It seems so lovely. So we're here now talking about Roud 43. I mean, it's not a particularly. I mean, there are less common child ballads, and you can always tell when a child ballad is one of the lesser known child ballads, right down at the real tail end of the child ballads in terms of the amount of people that sing them. You can tell when it's one of them because my friend Helen Lindley comes on the podcast to talk about the ones that no one ever sings. Yeah, because Child Waters, a few people do sing it or have sung it over the years. So it's not the least common by quite a considerable margin, but nevertheless it's certainly in the lower echelons of the child index in terms of popularity of songs. So it's nice to cover it at least. Child Waters, give us what's it about? Give us the plot, as we always start.
Well, it's one of those that nowadays, and it doesn't surprise me that not many people sing it nowadays, to be honest, because the plot to modern eyes is a bit iffy from a gender equality point of view, which we'll talk about in a second.
Yeah.
But basically, Child Waters is a young man, presumably a rich and famous young man, and this is going by the oldest version, which we'll talk about in a moment, but it starts straight away, in effect, by saying that she says to him that she's pregnant. Uh, and he said, then he more or less says, well, I'll buy you off. And he offers her two shires, i.e., two counties,
Oh,
presumably to keep quiet about it and go away. Doesn't really explain what she's going to do with two counties. And she says no. She refuses. She says, I'd rather have a kiss from your lips than Lancashire and Cheshire put together. So I
wow.
think that's a bit mean on Lancashire and Cheshire. They're not worth that much. But anyway, um, so as in all the ballads, it doesn't really fill in the backstory or what's going on. It just sticks to the action. So he says, "All right then, but I've got to go to the north. I've got to go away for a while." And she says, "I'll come with you. I'll dress as a page boy." Um, I mean, that's common enough in ballads, woman will dress as a man. Although if she's pregnant, how she's going to get away with being the page boy, hiding in plain sight, as it were. Anyway,
Yeah.
that's not explained. But then the main part of the story is that he's really mean to her. In this journey to the north, he makes her, or she is willing to, run alongside the horse barefoot. When they come to a river, he makes her swim the river, whereas he can presumably go on his horse. In other words, she has to go through all these trials, these physical trials, and he seems to offer her no assistance or kindness, which is why, as I say, from a modern point of view, it's not very pleasant. When they get to where they're going, he even insists that she goes to the local tavern or inn and finds a pretty young girl for him to sleep with and bring this substitute back with her.
Right.
And she, um, the woman in the story, so we haven't named her yet, has to sleep at his bed foot. In other words, the ultimate in insult. And then it gets worse. She then goes into labour, and he makes her give birth in the stable or the kitchen or some other unpleasant place. But finally,
Finally.
because she has been so loyal and has gone through all of this, they do decide, or he decides, he will finally marry her and make an honest woman of her, and so on. Forgot to say at the beginning, I mean, we call this Child Waters because that's what Francis Child calls it. But it also goes by the name of Fair Ellen and Fair Margaret. But there are other Fair Margarets and Fair Ellens in the ballad, so it's best to stick to Child Waters.
There are indeed. 'Cause last season we had Tam Lin, and some people call that Fair Margaret.
Yeah,
So it's best to keep this, yeah.
yeah, keep it as Child Waters, even though that puts the emphasis on him rather than her.
As it does with Tam Lin.
Yeah, we would say that she is the heroine of this. She's the main character.
And is she sometimes referred to as Bird Ellen, isn't she, as well?
Yes, Bird Ellen, which just means young woman. I mean, like Child Waters, doesn't mean he's a child. It means he's a young man,
Yeah.
basically.
Well, Bird Ellen, just for listeners, last week's singer guest on the Fair Annie episode was Debbie Armour, and her band is called Bird Ellen.
Bird Ellen.
And so there we go.
So that's Bird with a U rather than
Yes.
with an I.
That's
They're
right.
not calling her a bird, as it were.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyway, so that's basically the story.
Not particularly pleasant, is it?
It's not particularly pleasant by modern standards, but and everybody who writes about this song starts off with the fact that Professor Child refers to this as a charming ballad.
Oh, he said a charming ballad which has perhaps no superior in English.
Yeah, in other words, it's one of the best ballads that he's come across, and it's charming. And nobody can quite understand what he's finding charming about it, because the story is charming.
I'm looking at. I've got onto the page on Mainly Norfolk that gives all the listings for who's recorded this on the revival and their sleeve notes. And the first three, Ewan McCall, Peggy Seeger, Frank Armstrong, all start their notes for the song notes with a comment on Professor Child and his note about this song.
Yeah, that's right, because nobody could quite believe it. I mean, when we think about the ballads in Child, we certainly wouldn't put it up there as one of the best,
No.
even if the storyline was better from a modern point of view. Anyway, so Child thought a lot of it, and he printed about 11 versions. But Bronson, who does the tunes, as you know,
Oh yeah.
only comes up with 3 tunes
Oh,
because it's not well known in the tradition. And an awful lot of the examples that we've got from Scotland are in manuscript or in books that don't have tunes.
right.
So the tune history of this one is fairly thin. Whereas in Bronson, for other ballads, there's dozens, maybe even hundreds. So again, it's the history is very thin.
That's right. We had that on the Lord Bateman one. There's at least 40 tunes in Bronson for Lord
Well,
Bateman,
yeah, yeah.
but three
Anyway,
for this one. Yeah.
so we know the earliest version is actually an English one, which we'll come on to in a second. But
Oh,
from then on, there are no sightings in England that I know of. Uh, Mostly they're in Scotland. The British ones are in Scotland. It's definitely much better known in Scotland. At least a dozen versions reported from by Scottish collectors, and
yeah, yeah.
about the same number in North America. Um, 10, maybe 12 in the USA that we know of. Sharp collected 3 versions in the Appalachians. There's 4 in Canada that I know of.
Yeah.
Uh, and then there's 3 that I know of in Ireland. So I think it's safe to say it's a Scottish ballad
Yes.
that went to America, but it's not been that popular anywhere. But the first version, the earliest version, is in an English manuscript, and it's a good 100 years before the Scottish versions.
That's right. And this is version A in Child, isn't it?
Yeah, so it's the first one in Child, which means, I mean, he always puts the first one is either the fullest or the earliest or the best in inverted commas.
Certainly fullest. It's a whopping 38 verses.
That's right. Yes, that's
You know,
right. Indeed. Um,
that's my kind of song.
and now, so Child has found it. We have found so this earliest version is in what's called the Percy manuscript because that was discovered and published by Thomas Percy. Come on to him in a second. But this manuscript it's not dated, but from internal evidence, most people now reckon that it was written by somebody from the Midlands, judging by the um, sort of dialect that's in there, English Midlands, that is, sometime between 1620 and 1650, probably nearer the latter date, so something like 1650. So that's well before the Scottish manuscript versions that turn up around 1800, that kind of thing, or late 18th century. So it's a bit of an enigma, really, that it's there in the English manuscript, but then it turns up when it does turn up. It turns up in Scotland.
and no other English ones.
Not that I know of.
Wow.
Certainly nobody's mentioned them as yet, and there seem to be no broadsides, which again is a problem for us as historians because broadsides help us to date things. Because they're printed, they are physical things.
Indeed, I noticed this because I, as always, went onto the Roud Index, and for this song, yeah, 64 entries in the folk song index, but zero entries in the broadside index.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
again, that's quite unusual because the broadside printers picked up on everything they possibly could, anything they thought would sell. Now, that doesn't mean that it wasn't on broadsides, of course, because we haven't indexed everything yet. But
Yeah, yeah.
one would have thought that the commentators, I mean, child ballads have been written about quite extensively. So you would have thought that somebody or other would have found the broadside of it. So all round, the song is a bit of an enigma because we just don't know those gaps. How was it known in Warwickshire or wherever the Percy manuscript was from?
Yeah,
Um,
because it wasn't because so basically there are three gaps essentially of different kinds. We've got the gap up between that earliest English version and the earliest Scots versions, about 100 years or so, and then there's a gap in that there's no broadsides that we've found yet,
yeah.
and there's a gap in that. I mean, you might come onto this later in more in detail, but as far as I could see, there's no field recordings of this one, and therefore, was this found in oral tradition at all? You know.
Well, it was found in oral tradition according to the Scottish collectors like Motherwell and
Ah,
Jameson.
okay.
They wrote it down or they found it in manuscript. There are one or two field recordings in North America,
Right.
Creighton in Canada. And I've just noticed that James Madison Carpenter did collect a couple of versions as well, and he did use a dictaphone.
Ah.
So I should have looked this up before we'd started recording. So it's possible that there's a recording there,
Ah, excellent. Okay,
and
yeah, we'll look that up.
there is an Irish version from a Mary Bailon, I think is the name, um, that I think Hugh Shields recorded. So we might be able to get at least some sound recordings.
Oh, that would be
But
great if we can source them. Yeah.
yeah, but again, you said the other songs we got dozens of recordings to choose
Yeah.
from. Here we might have one or two. In other words, it's one of those songs that either wasn't very popular or it was just under the radar, and we just haven't come across it properly.
Indeed, indeed so.
So unfortunately, there isn't much more we can say about the history of the song because we just don't know.
Yeah.
And of course, we don't know the so-called Percy manuscript, although it was written down somewhere in the mid 17th century. We don't know whether he or she who wrote it down got their songs from. There's evidence within the manuscript that some of them were copied from manuscripts and, sorry, copied from broadsides or, printed materials. But a lot of them in the manuscript are clearly from oral tradition. You can tell from the spellings and the way the words are put down. You can usually tell when something's been copied from print, put it that way.
Yeah, sure.
And of course, Child wouldn't have included it as his A text if he had thought it was a broadside just copied out, or he would have said so. In other words, it's got to be older than the manuscript because the manuscript writer has got to have got it from somewhere. But
Indeed.
we don't know where, and as you say, it's 30 odd verses long.
Quite
It's
extensive.
not as if it's a sort of a fragment that he or she has come across.
Yeah, quite
Yeah.
so. Looking at
So
30,
again, it's a mystery. We really don't know.
no.
Yeah.
But yeah, 38 verses for that version A in Child. Version B in Child, Jameson's Brown manuscript. Uh, was that something to do with a Mrs. Brown? I think is that Anna Gordon Brown?
That's yes, that's right. So that's late 18th century sort of thing.
Oh yes,
Yeah.
taken down from Mrs. Brown's recitation before 1783.
Yeah. So, as I say, that's over 100 years after the Percy manuscript.
Indeed, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's Lord. It got Bird Ellen in that one, but I think it's Lord John rather than Child Waters.
Yeah, the song, especially in America, is sometimes called Johnny Scott,
Not to be confused with
not to be confused
Roud
with the other Johnnies.
63, which is Johnny Scott, isn't it?
That's right. Yeah, just to throw everybody off the scent.
This is why the numbering system is important.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, and that's 36 verses, so that's a pretty extensive version as well, pretty complete
Yeah,
version with none of those dots that you get in Child that says we've missed some bits out.
yeah,
Version C in Child, that's in ancient Scottish ballads, the Kinloch manuscripts.
yeah.
Lord John again and Margaret in that one. That's Lady Margaret in that one. 35
One of the
verses. 35 verses there.
one of the reasons why it's so long is that it's a journey.
Yeah,
As we know from stories and ballads and television programs, a journey, a quest, or whatever is always a narrative um, gift, really, because it has a beginning and an end, and it has a chronology, and
yeah,
you can just add another thing that the poor woman had to go through um, to
indeed
give you
so.
another two or three verses, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So from that point of view, it's not surprising that it's a long
Indeed,
song.
because I then looked at version D in Child and I thought, oh, only 7 verses. But it turns out it's a something else from the Kinloch manuscript, and there's the dots, and then they've Child printed verses 24 to 30.
Yeah.
So, there's that. It says 30 verses. Version E in Child, that's the Harris manuscript, originally from who was Harris in this instance?
Sorry, I can't remember.
That's all right.
Uh, Could
That's
have
fine.
asked me before. I could have looked it up, but I can't remember.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Originally from Janny Scott, an old nurse in Perthshire around 1790. I beg you bide at home, Margaret, and sew your silken seam. If you were in the wide Highlands, you would be o'er far from home. So, Margaret again and Lord John again. Version F in Jameson's Popular Ballads from Mrs. Arrett of Aberbrothick. We've got only 12 verses, but there's three dots of omissions.
Left out. Yeah.
But that's Lord Thomas and Lady Ellen, not to be confused with the Lord Thomas and Ellen from last week in Fair Annie, or from Lord Thomas and Fair Eleanor we did back in season
Yeah.
1.
Yeah. Another thing you could say, again, this is a mystery. Well, it's a negative point, is that a lot of these very long ballads from the 17th century, they were rewritten and shortened about 1800.
Right.
The week before Easter, for instance, the Babes in the Wood one, the Cruel Miller, there was a deliberate attempt to bring them up to date, and that usually meant shortening them.
Yes.
And it's the short versions that turn up in the tradition.
That's right. Almost everyone knows the song "Babes in the Wood,"
Yeah,
being 3 verses, if that,
yeah,
sometimes 4, depending. And then Gordon Hall sang one that lasted 20 minutes, and and then I found the broadside that obviously he found
yeah,
in the Lucy Broadwood collection, and it's 20 verses.
yeah. But
Not 20 minutes, must be about 12 minutes, but it's 20 verses, and that's clearly the original.
but it may well. But this hasn't happened. You could say, well, why hasn't this happened to this particular song? And again, it may simply be the lack of broadsides,
Yeah, that's right.
because it was the broadside writers who did the cutting down of the songs,
Yeah.
so that if nothing else, so they could fit it on the smaller bit of paper when they were printing. But it, so it stands, if there's no broadside version for them to latch on to, then it misses out
It, and
for
it's in
that.
the shortening or
Or
the
as it were.
modernizing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Um, so again, that might explain why it's so little known in the tradition, is
Yeah.
because
It,
there
it
wasn't.
never it never got shortened and in quotes popularized.
Yeah, or yeah, indeed, and in
Yeah.
effect brought up to date, even if the story stays the same. Um, 8 verses, 10 verses is better than 30 verses.
Well, I don't know,
Yeah,
but yes, but in those days, yes, there's not. Yeah. And then version G in Child, it's 22, 23 verses. That's from the Buchan manuscript. What are the names in this one? Came on to the Clyde, the Lady. Do we have names in this one? It's all Lady and Father and Willie. I think we've got Willie in this one.
right.
Let Willie's mother, good, make you safe, my own son Willie. Yeah, we don't even get her name in that one. That's interesting.
Yeah,
Version H in Child is from the Motherwell manuscript from Marjorie Johnston, servant to W. Parker, manufacturer in Paisley. Bird alone, as in the word alone.
yeah. Right.
Lord John and Bird alone. And
That
that's,
the other bleeping bird, Ellen.
yeah, that's 15 verses. Nearly there. Version I in Child, communicated by Dr. Thomas Davidson as learned from his aunt, Lord John and Lady Ellen. And then version J in Child is Buchan's Ballads of the North of Scotland. Bird Helen in that one. That's obviously Ellen again. I'm not sure if we get his name in that one. It's a quick scan through this. He's a knight. We know that at least.
Yes, well, he has to be of higher social standing than her,
Yes,
so that he can call the shots.
indeed. Oh, there we go. It's Willie again. It's Sweet Willie, I think. Oh, not particularly sweet though, but
Well, no, we wouldn't call him sweet.
then Willie lap on his white steed and straight a did ride. Bird Helen dressed in men's array, she walked by his side. Sweet Willie rode, Bird Helen ran a livelong summer's tide until she came to one water, for all men calls it Clyde. Sweet Willie, and I think somehow her name changes to Dow Isbell. I think maybe in that one. There's another character, or about the same character called Dow Isbell turns up. You said something about a second female character, didn't you? My brain has not
There,
retained thing from 20 minutes ago.
yeah, there is one of the tests that he puts her to is sending her to the tavern to pick up another
That's
young
right.
woman.
You did say that, but that was 20 minutes ago.
I'm not sure that she gets a name.
Oh, well, in version J in Child, she's a Isbel. 24 gay ladies were all sat at dinner set. Bird Helen sat by a table by a bite she could not eat. Out it spake her Dow Isbel, a skilly dame she was she. Oh, where got ye this fine foot page you've brought along with thee?
Still disguised as the foot page,
Yeah.
even though she's about to give birth.
And then later on, when day was gone and night was come, and all men bound for bed, Sweet Willie and Dow Isbel in one chamber were laid. And so, yeah, that's Isbel in
Ah,
that one.
right. So she is the replacement.
And that one, 49 verses.
Yeah, they don't make him like that anymore.
They do not, they do not. Yet only 3 tunes in Bronson as well.
Yeah,
And let's go through them. We've got the Harris manuscript, so I mentioned that one in Child. That's version 5, I think, in Child, possibly. The Janny Scott, the old nurse in Perthshire, 1790. I beg you, bide at home, Margaret, and sew your silken seam. If you were in the wide highlands, you old would be far from home. Something like that, anyway. For Fair, that's Fair Margaret. That one's called. Version 2 in Bronson. There's only three, so we'll go through all of them. Lord William and Fair Margaret in the Grieg manuscript. Um, Lord William sat at his stable door, says I'll away and ride. Margaret stood at a bower door, says I'll go by your side. That's quite a good modal one. And I'm pretty sure that's the one that Judy Cook will be singing later on for us. And then we've got an American melody sung by Mrs. Irene Carlisle from Fayetteville, Arkansas in 1942, learned from her grandmother in Mississippi circa 1912. We've only got three verses, I think, is for this one. Oh, stop and pull me on before. Oh, pull me on behind. Oh, let me hold to the pommel horn to cross the riverside. Oh, let me hold on the pommel horn to cross the riverside. But yeah, that's got a sort of modal pentatonic thing going on, which is quite reminiscent of a lot of American tunes. I think Judy's American, she might correct me. But yeah, so we've only got those three, quite similarly modal in some respects for those examples. And you mentioned field recordings. Certainly on recordings that are available on record labels like Veteran and Musical Traditions and Topic. This song doesn't appear to exist, but there are some ones dotted around, hidden away, which you have managed to mention already, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. But again, very, very thin compared to others. This is
Indeed.
not.
Indeed so. And yeah, I think we'll leave things there then. Thank you as always for being on and coming and doing this. This is much appreciated.
That's okay.
And yes, we'll see you back next week. We'll be doing Fair Janet next week, another not as commonly sung child ballad, but equally awful in its treatment towards women. So, two fun-filled weeks on the podcast. But these things are worth discussing. I'm sure Judy has a lot to say about this. And I've already recorded the singer half of next week's one, Fair Janet. And I can tell you that singer had a lot to say about the treatment of women and Janet herself in that song. But we'll let listeners come to that one next week. But in the meantime, from Child Waters and us here in the Roud, Steve Roud, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
A huge thanks again to Steve Roud for providing us with a history of Child Waters. Normally, at this point in the episode, we listen to clips of traditional singers. Steve Roud did say towards the end of the history segment that he'd try and locate some of those recordings that he'd found mentioned in the index, but he was unable to track down the recordings. A massive thanks to him anyway for having a go at finding them. And so we move swiftly on to the second half of the episode. To chat more about Child Waters and other things too, I was joined for this episode by our singer guest, Judy Cook. Well, hello and a big welcome to In the Roud, Judy Cook. Hello.
Hello, Matt. How nice to finally meet you in person. Sort of in person.
So person on Zoom. I mean, I'm pretty sure that our paths have crossed in person somewhere like Whitby Folk Week, but neither of us can actually pinpoint a particular time or place. But we've been in various Zoom rooms over the pandemic. I'm sure the musical traditions club that Peter Webb and Ken Hall used to run did monthly Zoom concerts and sing-arounds, and we were always in the same room there, I think. and also in the traditional song forum. I occasionally manage to remember to turn up to the Zoom
And
meetings.
probably more often there even.
Maybe exactly.
Mhm.
But yes, lovely to actually have a chance to sit down and have a proper chat about, and in this case, about a particular song. Um, so we heard Steve Roud earlier talking about the history side of Child Waters. Before we get on to the ballad from your perspective, give us a bit of Judy Cook history and a bit of how you your musical upbringing, perhaps, and how did you come to folk music? What's the story there?
Okay, well, I love to talk about myself and I love to talk about music. So so
All right.
it's all good. Um, I have been singing for as long as I can remember. Um, I know that, and a lot of it has been traditional-ish music. I can remember my father and I singing "The Keeper Would a Hunting Go" when he was pushing me in the swings before my feet could touch the ground on the swings. So it's been a very long time. And I can remember singing donkey riding uh, when I was doing it was sort of a dishwashing shanty, if you will. It was one of a number of songs that we sang there. Lullabies were a regular thing. So singing was happening in my house a lot when I was growing up. And then Girl Scout camp, uh, college, friends in college, and then later, let's see, after college, I descended into our basement to do computer programming for 10 years, and
Oh
then
wow. Okay.
emerged saying there's more to life than this. And remembering that my one of my college roommates had said, the Folklore Society of Greater Washington is something you should look into. And so we did. I went to a sing around at the folklore. I had gone to the concerts, yes, but this was the sort of a song swap. And the first round, I didn't sing anything. Oh, no, I'm not going to. And then somebody sang, this was in 1985, I believe. Somebody sang that was truly awful. And I said, "Oh, I can sing better than that." So I sang something that I'd learned off a record, and I thought, this will be a good thing. And I sort of didn't expect people to sing along. I sang "All the Little Chickens in the Garden" that I'd got off a Watterson's record,
Oh, very good. Yeah, yeah.
and everybody in the room joined in. And I said to myself, "These are my people." And yeah, it turned out, I found out later that there had been a wedding earlier in the year, and that song had been sung at the wedding, and so everybody knew it. And so that was good. So let's see, where did it go from there? The Folklore Society of Greater Washington is a group of people whose idea of a good time is to maybe have a potluck supper and sing all evening. Or if you're lucky, sing all weekend, get
Oh,
together and sing all weekend. And
oh,
so we did that.
that sounds lovely.
Oh, it is lovely. In fact, 86, the following year, I went to their getaway, which is a singing weekend, which they do every year. And um, I I just got back. It was the I think the first weekend in October this year, and we went again. And I mentioned at breakfast the last morning, which was the Monday morning, I said, "Oh, the first one I went to was 1986." And the woman who was sitting next to me said, "That's the year I was born." And made me feel so young and fortunate too.
Well, I won't tell you how old I was in 1986. It's in the negative numbers, shall we say?
Well, that's just great. Um, I won't hold that against you.
No,
I
thank you.
I like singing. I very much like singing with younger people. We now live um, in a retirement community in the town of Oberlin, Ohio, which also has a college and a university. And um, we have the college kids over here for a sing around once a week when school's in session and when we're home. And that's always good.
Very good.
Anyway, back to the history of how did Judy get into all of this? Um, Somewhere around 1990, people started asking me to come sing at their coffee house or come, you know, one-off gigs, if you will. I even got some money for them sometimes, and um, it I enjoyed that very much. Took me about close to 10 years before I got up enough nerve to call people up and say, "Hi, I sing. Can I come sing and you give me money?" And having them say, "I don't think so." Um, you know,
It's a tough thing. It's a weird thing we do is the self-promotion thing. It's
I've stopped that now.
you have
Now,
to
if
have.
it, I've stopped that now. If somebody asks me to come sing, I say, "Oh yes, please." But I don't set up tours for myself. I had a wonderful time doing it.
Yeah.
Um, Somewhere, let's see, when was it? It was in the 1980s. Um, one of our friends who used to come to the FSGW getaways, Sue and Charlie West, started holding what they called bittersweet ballads weekends, a whole weekend devoted to eating dark chocolate and singing long ballads, which is a fine combination, I can tell you. They had a big old Victorian house right on the edge of the Atlantic Ocean in Maine, state of Maine. And we would sleep on the floor. We would sing all day, all night, and it was, as I said, specifically for ballads. And that, even though I've been singing ballads occasionally all my life, but that really got me started seeking out and singing ballads that I liked because it was valued in that group. You know, people really wanted us to sing ballads, and we did. So that was pretty much fun. Um, and then two things happened. Sarah Gray um, had a party. At that point, they were living north of Inverness. She's an American, but she's lived a lot of her life she's lived in Britain, one place or another. And this was part of the time that she was living north of Inverness, and she had a bunch of people there. Um, uh, from both Britain and America. And it was a wonderful singing weekend. Um, and the other thing that happened about the same time was David Jones. I forget, I think we met him. I'd met him a number of places, but one time we got to talking, and I think it probably was at a Folk Alliance meeting. And he said, I mentioned to him that we were heading over to England. We started going to England to take advantage of the Landmark Trust properties. Do you know those, Matt? Do you know the Landmark Trust?
It
Not the
rings it,
National Trust.
it rings a bell, but I'm not entirely familiar with it, I don't think.
Well, it's an organization. It's not the National Trust. It's the Landmark Trust, and it's a private organization that finds they either get long leases or buy or are given historic properties, and they fix them up to some some part of their history, some part of the building's history, and they fit them out with plumbing, a kitchen, um, places to sleep, bathrooms, and then they let them out for a week at a time, really to keep them occupied as much as anything, and to make a bit of money for their upkeep. And we started going to Landmark Trust properties. We did our first one in 1981. And it turns out that my sister-in-law and I had separately read articles about, how to rent your own castle sort of thing. And because they do them self-catering, you have the whole place to yourself. We did it in 1981. It was so much fun that we said, we're going to do this as often as our schedules and financing allow, which was every 2 or 3 years at that point. So we had been doing that for a while. And when David Jones and I talked, I mentioned to him that we were going to be going to England in March, I believe it was. And he said, "Oh, are you going to the National?" And I said, "What's the National?"
Yes.
And he said, "Oh, you don't know what the National is? Well, call this person, look up this place." And the next time I saw David Jones, he said, "So, are you going to the National?" And I said, "Yes, I am." And he said, "Oh, good. You can help me lead the, what was it? It was the gospel workshop." He said,
Right.
"You know all the songs," he said, "but I only know the harmony parts and you know the melody. So you can help me lead this." So we went to the National,
So
and this was, I
this
think,
is the National Folk Festival, isn't it?
yes,
Yeah,
yes,
that's right.
in Loughborough, wasn't it? Yeah.
I think so. Yes, yeah.
Yeah, it was in Loughborough at that time. And so this was the year after Sarah Gray's party. And I said to Dennis, as we were getting ready to go, I said, "This is going to be weird to go to a folk festival where we don't know anybody." Because we were used to going to folk festivals in America, right?
Sure.
And we
Yeah,
knew
yeah.
everybody because everybody was a member of the Folklore Society of either Washington or Boston or New York. And they all sort of mix and mingle. It's all one big family up and down the north half of the East Coast. So I said, "Oh, this will be weird because, we won't know anybody." It turns out that most of the people who were leading the panel discussions, who were being the MCs, if you will, for the sessions, were people who had been at Sarah Gray's party. So yes, we did know people there. Not only did we know people, but the way, and this was in 1997, I think, the way that they ran things at the National is whoever was running the session, they'd have a panel of singers up front, and it would be on some topic or another, usually, I think. And they would have the people on the panel each sing a song or two, and then they'd say, "Oh, I see we have so-and-so in the audience. Why don't you give us a song?" People were calling on me and saying, "Oh, I see we've got Judy Cook in the audience. Judy, won't you give us a song?" And you know how shy I am. Not. So of
Indeed.
course I did. And people sort of said, "Oh, are you going to be coming over again? And will you sing at our folk club?" And so, man, the next year Um, and Sarah Gray gave me a list of folk clubs to call, and many of them said, oh, well, if Sarah Gray says you're okay, then you're okay with us. And so I had my first singing tour in the US and my first singing tour in the UK, both in 1998.
Wow. Okay.
And it was it was pretty much fun. It was
Yeah,
pretty much fun, both places.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
I would imagine you ended up in down in Sussex at either of the two folk clubs in Lewes, either the Lewis Arms Folk Club or the Royal Oak Folk Club in Lewes,
Both.
because both, yeah, because they were my regulars. I was from Brighton. I am from Brighton, but those were my sort of regular folk clubs growing up. So I was usually at either of those two. So
Well, Valmy was absolutely wonderful, and welcoming.
she still is. She still is. That club is still going strong.
And Vic and Tina Smith were also very welcoming,
That's
and
right.
oh gee, we just had great times there.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyone doesn't know, that's yeah, Val My Goodyear, who still does run the Lewis Saturday Folk Club, as it's now called, on a Saturday in Lewis, and Vic and Tina Smith, very old friends of mine, used to run the Royal Oak Folk Club on a Thursday in Lewis, that was my main club that I went to every week, and wonderful times were had.
Wonderful times were had. The British folk clubs were just a very rich and wonderful part. And we started, Dennis had retired, and we the first thought we had as he was retiring is, well, we're going to be on a pension, no more trips to England. And then we found out that people would pay me to sing, and we could come over every year. And
There you go.
so that was pretty much fun,
I can
to
imagine, yeah.
say the least.
So is that all behind you now? The gigging and touring and coming to the UK and things.
Yeah, we were on tour in the UK in March of 2020.
Oh,
Need I say more? The
wow.
last the last one was the night that they closed the pubs. And
Oh,
I was booked to sing, and the audience was there, and the word came in that the pubs were closing. I had decided I was watching the news and decided we're going to keep going. As long as they want us to sing, I'm going to stay here and sing. Well, the organizers got together in the back of the room with a little hurried and worried conversation, and they came to the front and said, well, since you all are here and since Judy and Dennis are here, you can't get a drink because the pub is closed, but we've decided to have Judy do a 45-minute set, and then we'll all go home. So one of the hardest sets I've ever sung, because the entire audience was looking at their watches the whole time, and
yeah, I can
looking over
imagine.
their shoulders. And so we got home just as the borders were slamming shut behind us.
Oh,
We drove we drove to Heathrow in the middle of the night and spent the night in the early morning there, and booked a flight on the first you know first flight to America. We were going to fly home through Canada, and
oh,
uh, I let people back here know that we were going to do that. And people said, one of my friends back here emailed and said, we were going to fly back on the Saturday. And he said, I heard they're going to close the Canadian border on Friday. So we found out that that was true. And that's when we drove to Heathrow and got on the flight. They were having, usually I think they had 14, that particular airline had 14 flights from UK to US a day. That day they had two. The next day they had one, and they were pretty much empty.
wow.
So, as I said, we went back, and I did come back again in I think the last time I was there was that I did a tour, if you will, was in 23 when I finished up the gigs that I had booked in
Oh, I see.
2020 and a few others as well, because why not? And
Yeah,
finally got to sing at the bridge, which was something that I'd always wanted to do, and had a wonderful time. But the flying across the ocean and seems less fun than it used to be.
sure, I can imagine. Well, let's get on to the subject, the proper subject of today's chat, which is Child Waters. Where does the ballad Child Waters sort of start for you in your folk song singing history?
Okay, 1997
Right.
is where it started, because that was the year that Sarah Gray convinced Malcolm Story to hire for Whitby Festival 4 American singers whose names all started with J. Judy Cook, Jeff Davis, Jerry Epstein, and Joan Sprung. And so Malcolm, in his wisdom, hired us as Sarah Gray and the 4 J's. Now, we don't sing anything together. It sounds like a 1930s gospel group, but in fact, we are all solo singers who don't sing anything together. So, not having told the compares that we were separate singers, they would give us a 10-minute slot for 5 of us.
Ah,
So we spent the week singing the shortest songs we could manage or drawing straws to see who would sing this time. And it was an interesting time. And but it was after I'd been doing the bittersweet ballads. So of course I sang ballads when I could. And Gordina McCullough, one of the songs I sang was Lord Thomas, which is an American version of The Brown Girl.
yeah, that's right. We covered that in season 1 of this podcast because it's Roud number 4.
Round
And
number.
and our guest for that one, Debbie Armour, she'd learnt it from Gordina McCulloch. So yeah, there you go.
Yeah. So I sang this American version of it. Gordina uh, spoke with me sometime during the week and said, "I heard you sing, Lord Thomas." And I said, "Yes." And she said, "Do you know the Dun Brown Bride?" I admitted that I did not know it. And she said, "Well, you should sing it." And so we arranged to meet and we recorded her. We had a little tape recorder and we recorded her singing the Dun Brown Bride. And while we were at it, she sang the Lord William and Fair Margaret, which is Child Waters. And she said, "You need to sing these 2 ballads." She said, "Take them out of the Scots." She said, "Don't try to sing Scots." She said, "Change them to American. Do whatever you need to make them singable for you and sing these ballads." And so that's how I came to meet Child Waters. And it appealed to me. Now, the version that Gordina sings does not, and the version that I learned, does not have some of the most objectionable parts that Steve Roud talked about
Ah,
in the ballad. It does
yes.
not have him saying, "Go into town and get me a wench and, and sleep at the
Find
foot of my bed." It
yeah,
doesn't.
find me someone that I will later marry, but you must sleep at the
Yes.
foot of the bed.
Or there's a woman in that hall that I love much better than you. And, all of that. That's not there. Um, so so I didn't find that objectionable. What appealed to me about Child Waters, I like songs about strong women. And I felt like Lady Margaret, Lord, she's a strong woman. 9 months pregnant, running after a horse. What do you mean? And and wading the river, and all of that. And not only that, she was tremendously strong. Um, and just saying, I mean, in Gordina's version, which became my version, he does not say, I'll give you 2 counties of England if you'll just stop following me. Yeah, so I got you pregnant. So, that's
Yeah.
no reason to follow me around the country. He didn't offer her anything. He just says, I'll away and ride. And she says, I'm going with you. And he says, okay, you got to be my horse boy. Um, and so
Yeah.
he rode and so she ran. Um, so she's pretty strong. And Willie's mother is a strong and observant woman. I really like her. She's the one who spotted, hey, this doesn't look like a serving boy. This looks like a woman who's about to give birth. And when she does, he says, "Get up, Willie, keep us from harm. Get down there, be with her." You know, it sort of, hits him upside the head. Uh, but
Yeah.
Anyway, that's a long-winded how I came about getting to Child
No,
Waters.
that's good. So, was this a song that you were aware of at all before this, or was this a new song to you, a new ballad?
Completely new. Never heard it before, never heard of it. I mean, I did not go through the child ballads. Uh, you know, I know there's a lot of people who want to attempt singing every one of the 305 child ballads, and I'm I'm not one of those people. It's usually somebody sings one and I say, "Ooh, I want that."
Yes, it's a bit of a task to try and go through them all. I mean, James Fagan, who was the singing
Oh,
guest
yes.
in episode 1 of this season when we covered Sir Patrick Spens, and he spoke about this as well a little bit. He co-runs along with a guy called Sam Hindley. They co-run together. Thank goodness it's folk, which is a Sheffield local folk radio show,
Uh-huh.
just on Sheffield radio. And it's just every Friday they play 2 hours of the best of folk music and stuff. But they've been doing a project for a while called Friday's Child, where every week they've been trying to compile a kind of make a compendium of recordings of the child ballads from people who sing them. And so every week they cover the next child ballad. They get someone in to sing the next child ballad, etc. And they got me in because I'm one of the only people that sings Child 46.
Which is,
Which is the death of Andrew.
oh my gosh, the death of young Andrew. You
Uh,
sing that.
I do,
Oh,
yes.
oh. Now that's brutal.
It is. I sing that in a duo with George Sanson, my mandolin guitar duo with George Sanson. That's one of our big numbers, and I love singing it. But it's brutal. But I sang that for the radio show, and yeah, I'm pretty sure they're going through it in order numerically, so they've definitely passed this one by now. They're in the hundreds somewhere, but they did have to. When it got to the Robin Hood ballads, I mean, there's about 35 of them, isn't there? And I think they did about 2 or 3 and then just skipped the rest. So even they, in their attempt to do them all, just thought let's just knock this one. Let's just move on from Robin Hood. Thankfully, when it comes to the podcast, Steve Roud did not index
Flinch.
all. No, he did flinch in a
Oh,
way.
even he flinched.
Well, no, he hasn't flinched in that he has indexed them all,
Oh,
but
good.
not at the same time. So I have mapped out, as I said to you before we started this, I have mapped out the first 30 seasons of this podcast. We're in season 5 at the moment, by the way. The first 30 seasons, just so I know what's coming up in the near future, what song's coming up in the near future, what song's coming up over the next 5 to 8 years. So I've got the list of the first 300 songs in the Roud Index, and there are only three Robin Hood ballads, and they
All
are
right
three.
then.
They are three in a row, and so that's not. That's all right. However, even those three are split up for me because the first one will be the last episode of season 7, and the next two are the first two episodes of season 8. So even the three in a row, which are the only three in the first 300, are split up by about 2 months of a season break. So we won't have quite that problem, and I don't know when the next Robin Hood ballad turns up, but there's a lot of them, and it's yeah, but even then, I don't know. I mean, I've got some recommendations to do later on about people who have sung this ballad over the decades of the folk revival, but this was a song. This was a song that I think I knew the name Child Waters, but I didn't know what it was about until I had the interview with Steve Roud. I really hadn't come across it at all, and I'm just saying,
Yeah.
yeah, there are so many child ballads that I mean, excluding the majority of the Robin Hood ballads, there are still so many child ballads that people don't sing.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, and that's an interesting thing to quandary because we had 2 seasons ago we had Gil Brenton, the ballad Gil Brenton on, and no one sings that except Nancy Kerr and her band, the Magpie Ark, are releasing it on their new album in a couple of months. They're the
There you
first
go.
they're the first revival artist to ever sing Gil Brenton. And like the song we're doing next week, Fair Janet, just yeah, there's even that one. There's almost barely anyone that sings it. But I managed to get someone on, and we'll come to that next week. But yeah, and I know people sing like there's a. Do you know Chris Foster?
I do.
Yeah, we had Chris on in the previous season to come on and talk about the trees that do go high, and he is, as far as I can tell, the only person I'm aware of that sings the child ballad Sir Aldingar.
Oh, well, Brian Peters does.
Oh, there's two people I know who sing Sir Aldingar, Brian Peters, and well, if we come to Sir Aldingar, it's got a much higher round number. So if I get Chris Foster on to pick 3 songs for the Patreon, maybe I'll get him to pick Sir Aldingar, and then Brian can come on and do the song history, because Brian's one of our regular song historians. So
As well, he should be.
that's what it should
Yeah.
be. So anyway, that's a slight tangent for me, but it's just yeah, there are a lot of child ballads that still really haven't been sung much or at all. And although this one has been sung a bit, it's not one that is familiar to a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I guess
Yeah.
part of that, I mean, and you were saying, saying that you're attracted to the strong woman in this. But on the flip side of that, this ballad is about, a man being awful, being
Which,
absolutely terrible.
and that's really why I stopped singing it, is because every time I sang it,
Yeah,
nobody said what a strong woman she was, what a strong woman her mother was. They all said, how could he do that? He's
yeah.
horrible. So you kind of, when you get that kind of reaction to a song you've sung, it kind of puts you off a little bit. And
Yeah.
you can explain, but there's no getting around it. He is a horrible person.
And normally the song is called. I mean, your version is Lord William and Lady Margaret, so you've got both characters' names in the title. But predominantly, people know this as Child Waters, which is his
Yeah,
name. So
yeah.
so many ballads. We had Tam Lin in the last season, where it's really about her, whether that's Ellen or Margaret, whatever. But the ballad is called Tam Lin. So many of these ballads that are about women the title has been given of the man, regardless of whether he's the main character or not.
And I admit that I called it Child Waters when I recorded it because
Oh, there
I
you go.
was, yeah, it was, I took the title that was in the child in Child, if you will.
Well, exactly. That's what Francis James Child deemed the sort of most appropriate title, I guess. So
Yeah,
we have to take these as they come. But
yeah. And
yeah,
and 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 as Steve pointed out, why he thought this was one of the finest ballads. I mean, really?
I know it's. I mean, it's great. However you want to deem great, it is. It is. I mean, having listened to a few versions, it's brilliant. But at the same time, I wouldn't go. Why would anyone call this like the greatest ballad in the English language? You know,
Nope.
not at all. But it's just yeah, baffling. But then, as Steve said, pretty much everyone who's written sleeve notes about this song has brought that up and queried
And
it.
I wonder if it's because they're completely baffled by it.
Oh yes, I imagine so.
Yeah.
Oh yes, his exact phrasing was this charming ballad which has perhaps no superior. Why is it charming for a start? But this charming ballad which has perhaps no superior in English, and if not in English, perhaps nowhere.
What?
That's so weird, isn't it? A child thought that.
So, so strange. Ah,
Yeah.
but,
Well,
but
this is
anyway, there you are.
because Peggy Seeger recorded this, and I'm quoting. That's her in her sleeve notes quoting "child," and then and then she queried that as well because Child said no superior in English, or if not in English, perhaps nowhere. But Peggy then commented, despite the fact that all 10 sets of ballads for this song in Child collection were reported to be from Scotland, not England. So why would he say English? But so because she said the ballad has not been reported from England and hardly known across the Atlantic. So why would he say that in English? But anyway, that's there are many things about Child that we will never understand.
Oh,
I'm
we don't need
sure.
to go there. We don't need to go there. No.
No, but yeah, it's just. Yeah, we've had.
But of course,
Oh,
Gordina sings it in Scots, and she said she told me for uh, both the Dun Brown Bride and for Lord William and Lady Margaret, she said, make it your own. Change the words. She said, don't try to sing Scots.
absolutely.
And I quite agree with her that when Americans try to sing in Scots, it's always a disaster. And
I feel the same way about English as well. Singing English people singing the Scots dialect. I just think,
yeah,
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 I mean, it's occasionally it works, but especially if it keeps the rhyme, then you can keep it if you like.
yeah.
But you don't doesn't have to rhyme. But I just
The
think
one
it just sounds silly coming out of my mouth.
it does. So the word that I had the most trouble with was hooly. And
Right?
hooly, she got up. Well, I did. Well, she's getting up from the table because she's in labor, and he has said, "Go feed my horse. No, get out of here." Um,
Ah, yeah, yeah.
and so slowly she got up, and slowly she put on, and slowly she's gone down the stair making heavy moan. I said slowly instead of hooly. I mean, it just means carefully, right?
Right. Yeah, sure.
So I put slowly because it scanned okay, and it sort of was what was meant there, and
Mm.
it fit.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Just going back to that thing about names again, it's yeah, because this is Bald is a lot of the time referred to as Child Waters because that's the man of the story. But then this is in a batch of child ballads and consequently a batch of Roud numbers. It's the this is the second of four in a row. Fair Annie last week, Child Waters today, Fair Janet next week, and then the following week Bonnie Susie Cleland or Lady Masery, which in a sense all four of them are pretty appalling in terms of men's attitudes towards women in the songs. But in the other three, they're named after the songs are named after the women: Fair Annie, Fair Janet, Bonnie, Susie Glenn, and Lady Masery. But somehow this one, maybe because Francis James Child liked it so much, he chose to give it the name for the man for Child Waters, but and that character also is William or Lord Thomas or whatever. But it's
Maybe it's because there were too many Margarets, too many Williams. The name Fair Margaret was already taken.
This is true, fair because Margaret turns up. I mean, all over the place, but certainly there are versions of Tam Lin from last season that are called Lady Margaret, and so it could just be to differentiate them. And also, we had Fair Annie last week. We got Fair Janet next week, so I guess it may just be a way of making them easily identifiable rather
Yeah, on
than
the other hand, if you have that many Robin Hoods in a row,
well, and then you see, on the other hand, this is the third on the other hand we've just done. On the other hand, on this hand, and on the third hand, it's Robin Hood. Yeah, but they're all called things like Robin Hood and the
yeah,
and
yeah, exactly.
but I guess I mean theoretically this could be one of a cataloging issue of just how do we differentiate this. I guess this could have been called Fair Ellen, but there are other ballads called Fair Ellen, I suppose, aren't there, and or something, and or Fair whatever, Fair Margaret. Yeah, it's just we'll never know, but it's these things to ponder on, I guess. Um, so did you learning it from Gordina McCulloch? Did you actually, apart from the Scots dialect into something fit more naturally for you, did you actually do any editing to the words yourself, or is it just exactly what
It's
Gordina
pretty
has?
much exactly the way she sings it. Yeah. And it's I think the tune is one that's uh
I was about to ask what the tune was from.
well,
Is it the
it's
same as
what
Gordina, or is it different?
yes, it's the same as Gordina, but it's also one of the ones that you um I think it's Greg Duncan, and it's Greg Duncan, and it's the one that you one of the ones that you sight read in your talking with, which by the way I'm quite impressed with,
Oh,
because I can't do that.
oh, thank you.
I can't look at dots on a line and say dot dot, and sing it. So I'm impressed.
Well, let everyone in no secret. Whilst I am pretty good at sight reading, I do practice beforehand. I do go through a few and just make sure so that I'm not warbling around in the episode. I do just have a quick scan through them before we start recording as well. But nevertheless,
I'm still
thank you.
impressed by your ability, Matt.
But nevertheless, until you mentioned it just now, I'd actually forgotten that when I sight sang some of those ones in Bronson, I came across the one that you sing, and
Yeah.
I mentioned that. I said that's probably the one that Judy's going to talk about. So,
Yeah, you did. Was it Bronson and not Greg Duncan then?
well, it's in the Bronson's tunes for the child ballads
Oh, it
collection.
would be, wouldn't it? Yeah, yeah.
But
I've
I'm
got
just
those.
opening. I haven't got a. I've got a PDF copy, Bronson. I'm just opening it now.
I've got the books on my shelf
Lucky
back in that
you,
room.
lucky you. And yes, I that's right because it's the second tune of the three available in
Yeah.
Bronson's tunes for the child ballads, and it's the second one, Lord William and Lady Margaret. It's in the the Greg manuscript, um, uh, also in Greg and Keith, 1928, 5, sung by Alexander Robb from New Deer in Aberdeenshire.
There you go.
Lord William stood at his stable door, says, I'll away and ride. Says, anyway, you don't need me to sing again. You heard me sing it earlier, and you're going to sing it, and we'll hear you sing it later on. You only hear
Yeah.
me warbling my way through it again. But nevertheless, yeah, and that's got 13 verses, but there are dots where Bronson
Things are
hasn't
left out.
printed. Things Bronson's left some bits out for reasons unknown. But it's yeah, Greg's. Oh, he's got some notes here about that one. Greg's pentatonic tune, also in the Dorian mode, has already appeared in the Dorian form in connection with Young Aiken, Child 41. That'll be Hind Etin. We covered that song last season, where it was given by the same family. Yeah, it's the Dorian mode, I think, because it's the yes, it's the flattened. Oh, I'm terrible at modes. Da 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 ba ba da da dum. It starts on the second of the scale, so it's a minor tune that starts on the second of the scale. If people are interested in that sort of thing, that's what it is. Um, but yeah, and that's the tune that Gordina McCulloch had as well, is it?
Yes.
Very nice, very good indeed. Uh, right, well, I mean, we could sort of whittle on about this for quite a long time because we could pick apart line by line if we
Of
really
course we
wanted
could.
to. But I think we'd better. We talked about this for a while, and Steve Roud earlier as well. So in terms of, I always come to recommended listening. We do that at the end of every episode. I guess as far as you're concerned, it's Gordina McCulloch.
Yes.
Yeah, and yeah, we've her name's come up on the podcast a few times, not least in the two episodes where we've had Debbie Armour as the singer. Debbie Armour's a fantastic Scots singer, and she looks up to Gordina very much. And yeah, we had Debbie on the Lord Thomas and Fair Eleanor episode and the Fair Annie episode. Interestingly, both the men in both songs are Lord Thomas. We discussed that last week. She may have a thing about ballads about Thomas and Annie and Eleanor. Thanks.
They were very common names.
They were, I know, yeah, absolutely. But I'll highlight some other ones that have been recorded. Not many. Uh, I mean, not as few as next week's song "Fair Janet," for example. But when it comes to Child Waters, both Ewan MacColl and Peggy Seeger recorded it. Ewan MacColl, 1964, on his album "The English and Scottish Popular Ballads, Volume 3, Child Ballads." That's there, 1964. That's Fair Ellen. And then 1979, Peggy Seeger sang it on her and Ewan's album Blood and Roses Volume 1, on which also lies Fair Annie. So there we go. Sung by Peggy Seeger, again, of course. Spoiler for next week, folks. Next week's singer guest is Peggy Seeger. That was very exciting. And then Gordina McCulloch sang it on a 1995 album called Folk Songs of North East Scotland, which is a compilation of songs from the Greg Duncan collection as performed at the Edinburgh International Festival. And so she's in the middle of that. In 2 weeks' time, we're going to have Sheena Wellington on the history side for an episode. Sheena's on that album singing Captain Wedderburn's Courtship we had in the last season. On there, you've got Sheila Stewart, Peter Hall, Isla Sinclair, Gordina McCulloch, Jane Turriff, Arthur Watson, Jock Duncan, Hamish Henderson, Brian Miller, Elizabeth Stewart. This is a stacked cast list for that album. Must try and get a copy of that, actually. That sounds like very good listening. Frankie Armstrong, a fantastic singer, Frankie Armstrong, sang it on a 1997 album of hers called Till the Grass O'ergrew the Corn. And that's a whole album of child ballads. And on there is Child Waters. That's right, it's called Child Waters there. So, I mean, if Frankie sings anything, it's worth listening to, you know. And then Judy Cook, it's on your album from 2000 called Far From the Lowlands.
Yes.
That's right, isn't it? Which is 19 tracks. You certainly didn't have a record label behind you telling you to cut it down to 41 minutes, did you, on that one?
No. I am fortunately married to a recording engineer.
There we go. Excellent. That always helps. Yeah, my first solo album, I wanted to put like 17 tracks on it, and it wasn't with a record label, but I was getting a bit of distribution deal through proper music, and my contact there looked at it and said 11 tracks, Matt. so I was like, oh, never mind. But yeah, but I was impressed. 19 tracks on an album, very good.
More songs. So many songs, so little time.
Yes. And I'll just highlight one more. There's a book called The Song Repertoire of Amelia and Jane Harris, which is they were sisters who inherited a wealth of ballads and songs from their family tradition, which goes back to about the 1700s. And that book is edited by Emily Lyle of the School of Scottish Studies. It's the two manuscripts of their songs of their Perthshire family, passed down from their mother, Mrs. David Harris, or Grace was her name. And so that's one book with 58 songs in it. They had 58 songs. And there's a companion CD where a woman, Dr. Catherine Campbell, she's an ethnomusicologist, sang 17 of the Harris sisters' traditional songs. And on there, track 1 is Fair Margaret, and that's this one as well. I think you can buy that CD from Pete Shepard's record label, Springtime Records, I think, but it's not widely available unless you know where to look, I guess.
I also have a website myself, which is judycook.net.
Oh, yeah.
And on it, there are recordings of many of the songs that I sing. And so that is a resource. You can go hear those, download them if you want to, perfectly fine. And I also have, there's a dozen-year archive of weekly radio shows that we do, that's on gladfortrad.org. GLAD, the number 4, TRAD.org. And it's a searchable archive of themed radio programs, hour long.
Wow, I will. Something else for me to listen to, as well as all the film history podcasts I listen to. I'll have to, and the podcast I am in charge of. I've now got another long form audio thing to listen to in the form of that.
2 of them, yeah.
2 of them, excellent, lovely stuff. Yeah, brilliant. I'll put links to those in the show notes for the episode. I put links to everything.
That'd be good.
In there.
So
we'll do that, and I think we'll leave things there. This has been absolutely fantastic to have you on and chat about this stuff.
It's been a great pleasure for me as well.
Good. I'm glad, and I hope we see each other, whether in person or in a crowd, across a crowded Zoom room, to paraphrase a popular song from a musical. Again sometime in the future, and maybe even have you on the podcast again sometime in the future for more songs, because there are lots more songs in the Roud Index.
I would be honored.
Great. Well, that's all from us. Until then, Judy Cook, thank you very much.
Thank you, Matt.
Lord William stood at his stable door, says, "I'll away and ride." Lady Margaret stood at her bower door, says, "I'll go by your side." He's mounted on his high horseback, and fast away rode he. "If you would go with me," he said, "my horseboy you must be." And so he rode, and so she ran, and she ran by his side, until they came to the river bank that all men call the Clyde. He rode in, she waded in, till the water's to her knee, and sighing said, "This fair lady, this wading's not for me." He rode in, she waded in, till the water's to her pap, and the babe that lay between her sides with cold his chin did crack. Lie still, my bonny babe, I'm wading to my chin. Your father's high upon horseback, cares not if we sink or swim." But in the middle of Clyde's water there stands a steadfast stone. He's turned his horse's head about and taken his lady on. Ride on, my lady gay, you see not what I see, for yonder is my father's hall, a little beyond the lea. There were 24 ladies fair stood together on the green, but a fairer lass than all of them took Willie's horse from him. There were 24 ladies gay sat together at the meat. Lady Margaret sat at a by table, but oh, she could not eat. Up and spoke Lord William's mother, and a wise woman was she. "You have brought home a new foot page, his like I ne'er did see. Sometimes his colour waxes red, sometimes it waxes wan. He's more like a woman with child than any waiting man. Get up, my bonny boy, my bidding for to do. Give grain and water to my steed, and see he's bedded down." Oh, slowly, slowly she got up, and slowly she put on, and slowly she's gone down the stair, making heavy moan. Slowly she's gone to the stable door, and slowly she's gone in, and there between his horse's feet she's borne her dear wee son. Now Willie's mother being in bed and lying all alone, she thought she heard a baby cry and a woman's weary moan. Get up, oh Willie," she said, "and keep us all from harm. You might have chosen a lighter serving boy than a woman big with child. There were 15 steps all in the stair, and he's taken them all in 3. And he's to the stable gone in haste to see his gay lady. He's hit the door then with his foot, so did he with his knee, till doors of deal and locks of steel in splinters he made fly. It's asking of you, Willie, and asking you'll grant me the poorest bower in all your hall for my young son and me. Your asking's not so great, Margaret, but granted it shall be, the very best bower in all my hall for my young son and thee. I'll take up my bonny wee son and wash him in the milk, and I'll take up my gay lady and clothe her all in silk. And cheer your heart, my fair Margaret, for be it as it may, your churching and your fair wedding shall both be on one day.
That was Judy Cook singing Child Waters. And that brings us to the end of this episode. What are your thoughts of this song? I'm always interested to hear listeners' thoughts on the songs as we go. If you want to get in touch, feel free to drop me an email at intheroud@singyonder.co.uk, or you can interact with us on the various social media platforms. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky. Just search for In the Roud, a folk song podcast. If you are enjoying the podcast, I would very much appreciate it if you would give us a little rating and review on wherever you get your podcasts from. On Apple Music, that's click the follow button so you get all the episodes as soon as they drop. I believe that's what people say, drop. And also there's a star rating out of 5 and a little review section. On places like YouTube, there's the subscribe button, the like button, that's thumbs up, not the thumbs down, and also comments as well. I try and keep on top of everything that comes in, so please do get in touch on the various ways, and I will try to interact where I can. All of that really helps the podcast to reach a wider audience. It all helps the algorithms do its job. Thank you. Just a quick plug about our Patreon for In the Roud. We've just finished a 3-episode mini-season of Singer's Choice with Kirsty Law, and we're about to start our next one with a guest who was on the podcast back at the end of the previous season for the episode on Lord Bateman. That's the singer and all-round maestro John Kirkpatrick. He's picked 3 songs, and I can't wait for you to hear them. They're all going very well so far. If you feel so moved to support the podcast financially, then please do head on over to patreon.com/intheroud. That's patreon.com/intheroud. And you can sign up for either £5 per month or £10 per month and receive regular bonus content. This week's Patreon episode, which comes out tomorrow, that's Thursday the 30th of October, we have the first of John Kirkpatrick's 3 song choices. We will be looking at Roud 184. That's a song called Johnny Sands, with song history from Steve Garden. Sign up to hear this and more at patreon.com/intheroud. In the Roud is a media partner to Veteran, the traditional music label. Although this week's song does not currently feature on any of their releases, you can find details of their extensive catalogue on their website, veteran.co.uk. That's veteran.co.uk. One last huge thanks to this week's guests, Steve Roud and Judy Cook. Join me next week for episode 4. We will be looking at Roud 44, which is child number 64. That's the song called Fair Janet. Steve Roud himself will be back again to do the history side, and my singer guest will be the legendary Peggy Seeger. I can't wait for you all to hear it. Until then, that's it from me. Stay safe, be well, and I'll see you next time. Quinn the Roud.